Hello, everyone, and welcome to You'll Probably Agree. Today, I haven't had this guy on for a while. It's Tarek Fayoumi from Movies with Tarek. Uh, so it's Autism Awareness Month, and I didn't know that until I think I knew it before Tarek brought it up. I saw it in social media. And as two guys with autism, Tarek, you told me that Inside Out has something to do with autism, and uh, I'm I'll give you my point of view, but before I do, I'd love to hear your thesis on that.
My thesis is because between Inside Out and Inside Out 2, like when you're looking at the characters, when you're looking at times of emotional regulation, like the tones of like the environments, like environments that are outside, environments where it's like peaceful, or moments that are stressful. A lot of the characters of that, and when it comes to the mind, it kind of correlates to like where's the sense of finding a calm, where's the sense of the sensory overload, like what's something that has individuals like at peace, especially when you look at younger humans and whatnot, and even in adults, because I even have my moments of sensory overload. Like hell, I feel like I had a lot of sensory overload at CinemaCon, not in a bad way, but not just because I loved every aspect of CinemaCon, but then the other parts of Vegas kind of were slightly overwhelming to me. Like there, as in like environments where some have a calm, then environments where some do not have a calm. And then when you put these characters, that are in the categories of happy, sad, or kind of in between, like Inside Out kind of creates an interesting portrait of that in the animated sense, even though it has a storyline with it. I feel it's something that kind of builds on top of each other, even though in the second one, even though I still like the first one better, I still feel like Inside Out correlates to the mind of how emotions and regulations like vary, like with age, demographics, and it's very creative, but of course the Disney colors kind of go with it in many different ways.
Yeah. So when I saw it, I don't think it's necessarily about the spectrum or autism, but I will say that I think when the filmmakers made it, it's sort of like it's about everybody, no matter where they are mentally, because
Mhm.
it's about children and growing up. And it's one of those beautiful existential Pixar movies that only Pixar can make. And everyone trashes Studio Illumination because they do the Minions films and all that, but
Oh yes.
Pixar has made Cars.
Oh
um
yes.
yeah, so there is that other side of the coin, but you have an emotionally complex movie here, and I think it's really about how a child develops and has to adjust to change, and then existentially how when we become older and adults ourselves, how we adjust to change. Now, if you're on the spectrum, I think being able to handle all of your emotions is a lot more difficult than it is for most people. A lot of, like, for instance, like most people like on the spectrum who don't get help would wind up like the bus driver they show during the post credits, where it's nothing
Yes.
but all the Lewis Black angry emojis taking over.
Oh yes.
um yeah, but the beauty with this film, though, although I don't think it's about autism, I think it is just about the universal mindset of children. And nobody does it better than them, because this is a movie that is literally about your emotions, and just naming the characters elicits certain emotions. Like, you can't have joy without sadness, and
Exactly.
so on and so
And
on. Yeah.
and I even will tell you that even with Inside Out, like I kind of look at it more from the perspective as an example. Even when we have like younger people on the spectrum, I think Inside Out can play a good example for those younger ones, because sometimes in certain places or different like learning environments, sometimes I know Inside Out has been like resorted to as an example, being like how are you gonna like what's something you can think of to help your mindset remain in tune, to help yourself find your calm. What is something that's gonna that is not gonna make you feel like you're gonna explode, or when you're gonna explode, how do you get back in that calm? Like that's kind of where I kind of that's kind of where I feel like Inside Out speaks on that level of the spectrum, even though it's not fully technically about it. It kind of creates like a presentation of where it's like thinking about colors in terms of emotions, I feel.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Well, and the beauty with the thing with the movie is that it's about how we not just have all of these emotions, but we need to have them. Like
Uh,
fear is necessary
mhm.
because you need to know, like as a kid, if you're taking a fork and you're putting it towards a wall socket, to be afraid to do that because it'll electrocute and kill you. Uh,
Mhm.
Anger is necessary because if someone is attacking somebody you love, you have to go and defend them. You can't be like, "Oh, excuse me, could you stop punching my friend in the face?" Like that's not going to work out either way. I mean, that's why, or you just call the cop. Anyways, various examples of that. You have disgust, which I would say was the least necessary emotion in that movie. I think they could
I
have cut
completely agree.
disgust from that film. Yeah.
I
And the funny
completely
thing
agree.
is, they had more emotions in this movie originally, and then they honed it down to 5. I would have gotten it down to 4 because disgust is okay, but disgust is sort of like another representation of fear or anger.
And
So
also disgust is one of those things where it's like let's say someone's like, I'm disgusted, like that's something
yeah.
that kind of falls under angry or annoyed kind of thing. And I feel like Inside Out kind of twirls it a little too much, and I do agree with you on that disgust was probably one that could have been left out a little more kind of thing. But it's just one of those things where honestly, even then, with like when you're thinking about emotions though, like honestly, even in the many moments where where you have Lewis Black playing the one who's like playing the icon of angry, like I'm just like a lot of times like that's kind of where I find the emotional regulation of context is kind
Mhm.
of like the representation of things going awry and things like that.
Well,
Definitely.
the movie is sort of about a little girl who has to learn how to regulate her emotions when
Yes.
she's put through a traumatic event. And the great thing about this movie is that all kids have had traumatic events that they can connect to with this movie. Now, it's nothing as severe as like Bambi's mom getting shot,
No,
but
absolutely
it's
not.
yeah, it's more like what happens is, we have Riley, who's the young girl in the movie, and her dad got a new job where he's going to move to San Francisco. And as they're moving into this new home, it's not as luxurious as her old home. She's sleeping on the ground on a fold up sleeping bag while her family's, getting all the furniture ready for the move. And this movie really struck a chord with me because it reminded me of when I was a kid. I had to move school districts, and when I did, like all the kids that I like became friends with, where the school area like itself like went out of their way because I could tell I was like kind of shy to fit in with that community. I had to leave those friends, and I never forgot about them. And when Riley's going through her move, it's reminding me of that. She's crying, she misses her friends, she misses her old campus, she misses her home. And it's like, and it's about having to adjust to that, and how do we adjust to that, and how do we manage our emotions so then when sadness does enter our life, we have to embrace it, because sadness is what reminds us why we have joy.
Mhm.
And it was this and it was sadness that helped Riley
And
find her joy again.
even with Riley, that's almost like, and I'll tell you, as one who's on the spectrum, the thing that gets me down the most is rejection. And I swear I face rejection a lot. Even I do face rejection still quite daily. Sometimes it may not look that way, but deep down I still do. And honestly, like with rejection alone, I feel like because us, even as critics, it's a trait. Like even for those who are, for many of us who are on the spectrum, we have a craft. Like how we love movies, we love reviews, we're trying to find ways to find our audiences, we put ourselves out there, so much, and sometimes we think we're going to make it into a festival, make it to another ranking, then we don't get there. Sometimes that feels like rejection, but sometimes deep down it's not always rejection. It's just a not now, but it doesn't mean it's it, but then that's where it's like, but then you still have to think about, what do we still have, like even though we got rejected, like we still have opportunities, we still have open doors to many things. It just we're just not at that tier that we were hoping to be just yet in many
Well,
cases.
I think when
Yeah.
we get rejection, that's a case where anger, we don't want to lose control of it because
Yeah.
then it's bad.
Yes.
But I will say, I think if you have something like autism, because like regular folks, they can, if they're like about to crash out, they'll find like a way to calm themselves down by taking deep breaths, which that bullshit never works for me. Um, what I would do
Oh, me neither.
is,
Immediately will think the end of the world a lot of times.
yeah, oh, take deep breaths. Oh,
Yeah.
really? Wow, Einstein, I never thought about doing that. Jesus Christ, if that worked, that would have killed me years ago. But no, like what I'll do is I'll go inside of my car or something, punch the wheel, scream, whatever I have to do, get that out of my system, then go back to wherever I need to go. And people have different ways of managing their emotions. Riley didn't know maybe how, she was afraid to cry. And because she was afraid to embrace her sadness, what happened? Her fear took over, her anger took over, her disgust took over, and all the negative traits that we have, which also has some positive attributes that are aforementioned, they end up hijacking the mind. And it did kind of remind me, when it comes to the spectrum, if I were to spin this in some sort of way, like what I'm having like on autistic meltdown, you kind of get that feeling where the whole room's spinning around like you're really drunk, but it's
Hmm.
without actually being drunk.
Oh,
And
hell yes.
yeah, so it's like the room spins around, your heart races, like you can't really give a rational response or thought. And it feels like Lewis Black and Bill Hader and that girl from The Office are all in control of your mind and you can't stop it. So this movie's great for reaching out to kids who might have autism. I would say like show it to adults too, but I think adults might take like offense at the fact that like, it's like,
And
oh, watch this kids film that's representing you. But it's a great way to show kids like, hey, here are your emotions. Here's how you can handle them. I'm gonna move this a
and
little
it,
bit.
and it almost and also a lot of times it also almost comes with the saying. It almost comes with the saying, like, go with your gut. Like, if you truly don't want to do something, don't do it.
Yeah.
Honestly, if your gut's telling you no, like you don't feel good about it, don't do it. Even though sometimes you may feel bad, you're turning something down, you may let it go. But is it worth though? Like putting you mentally into it, kind of thing, if it's truly not making you feel good. Because in the end, when you sometimes make that choice, one you don't want to make, when your gut's telling you like no, sometimes it cannot have the best outcome, unfortunately.
Right.
Whereas in the
Right.
end,
I think that's kind of more like related towards the second movie's plot, because that one was more about
yes.
Riley trying to make the soccer, the not the soccer, the hockey team.
Oh yes,
And
I
yeah,
remember.
yeah. See,
I
the second
remember.
one again. Here's the problem with the second movie is that the thing that made the first movie so good was the idea. It's about taking your emotions and creating these spirit-like avatars that live within your conscious that end up controlling your reactions. And then once we get past that idea and we go into movie two, I the movie can't go too far because it's a Pixar film. We can't have Riley going through puberty and learning about sex and all that. Or maybe we have like Riley as an adult and now she has kids and she's trying to manage a family. Kids don't want to see that. Parents don't want to take someone to see that. So they did what they could, but kind of like the Matrix, once you know what the Matrix is, and you've seen the first film, where do you
Oh
go
yeah.
from there? And they'd have to really pull something, unique and I'm sure they're going to I'm sure that they probably already have greenlit an Inside Out 3 for all I know.
I'm sure they have. And also, like honestly, even alone, like, look, I mean, we're gonna have Toy Story 5 this summer, and even now, and with that, like, I almost feel like moments of Inside Out makes me think of Toy Story, especially when you look at the characters like Andy and all. Kind of like, where do people stand when someone phases out of something? Like, look, Andy grew up, he went to college, and we like get to the third one. It's almost like now Riley is like our new Andy, but only the thing is the toys are inside her mind this time.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's also, if you look at Inside Out and you look at maybe Toy Story 3, it's about sort of the loss of imagination and childhood. Although in Toy Story, you never lose your imagination, as we find out in Toy Story 3 when Andy plays with the toys with Bonnie, and then Bonnie rejects Woody. Fucking bitch.
Oh yes.
But anyways, yeah, take that, little girl. But but then you get to Inside Out, and you have the character of Bing Bong, played wonderfully by Richard Kind, and Bing Bong is basically Riley's childhood or innocence, and what happens is at a certain point, sadness screws with some stuff. She screws with the little marbles of emotion, and it causes Riley to have a core memory, which is a traumatic moment where she's crying in the middle of school because she is having trouble adjusting to change. And in their journey, they kind of get lost in this huge chasm of lost memories. It's just a mountain of lost memories, and they run into Bing Bong there, her imaginary friend, and they make it at the end, like up the mountain, because I think they use imagination to push like a wagon with like a rainbow that goes up there. And when they have to say goodbye to Bing Bong, oh my god, that's like one of the Pixar like make the audience cry now moments, because that's you letting go of your imagination of your childhood. And it's just like Andy at the end of Toy Story 3 when he lets go of his toys and
And
even
it even
says
makes you
goodbye to
think.
them.
And when you look at the timeline of how they make these films, like even between Inside Out literally is almost establishing the same timeline in between films as Toy Story does. And I think they do that a lot of times with good intent, I think, because they know whoever is in this franchise is probably going to watch it or follow it for the rest of their life. Kind of like how I'm still following Toy Story. And honestly, looking back now, I feel like Toy Story, like, and then Inside Out, let's focus on Inside Out. All forms of Pixar and Disney, like, that go long extents, like, they're like these films, as they continue, they make you feel differently over time. Not not in a bad way, but just like oh, like we're in this era now. They're like making it aimed on this type of era kind of thing. Like they try to have it be kind of present a little more within the year they make them, kind of thing.
Yeah, because the beautiful thing about these movies is that you view them as a kid, you enjoy it as a kid, and then you become an adult, and the movie carries a whole other meaning to it that you didn't even understand as a kid, because it's just damn good writing and damn good imagination. Like, there's a reason why during Inside Out, like, dad is crying while little Johnny is wondering, why is daddy crying over a kid's movie? And it's like, well, one day, son, you'll understand.
And even then, like when you even how you said, like crying over a movie kind of thing, that makes me think a few about moments even from CinemaCon when I heard a few of the words from like Steven Spielberg, how Steven Spielberg literally said he found it so inspirational when he was a young child to be able to, his family rented like movie reels like to show to people in his community, and literally they would charge like 10 or 12 cents a ticket and charge
Mm,
that amount even for concessions. It's like there's that, like, from that it makes me kind of think when how you talked about that moment of a grown man, crying with a movie kind of thing.
mm.
I'm sure Spielberg or directors like that are still crying with many experiences of movies that they've seen or even that they've made. Like Steven Spielberg even had emotions when making Schindler's List as well.
Well, I could imagine. Yeah.
Oh yes, he
Yeah.
made that movie in an interesting era right after Jurassic Park, literally.
Same year, directed it. Same year. That's why he's the goat or one
Oh
of the
yeah.
goats. Um, what Inside Out is great because it exemplifies what Toy Story did, what Monsters Inc. did, and then what this movie did. Like these movies are really about what happens when you become older, when you grow out of your toys, when your imagination goes away. When you're no longer scared of the monsters that come out of your closet, the imaginary monsters.
and
And yeah.
and talk about being scared now. Like talk about being scared. Kind of like how in Toy Story, with the first Toy Story, you had Andy and you had the neighbor Sid. In the end,
Mhm.
Sid was scared when the toys started talking.
Well, I'm sure Andy would be too if he saw him talking, but
Yeah, but of course
the
they're never going to do that to Andy, of course.
yeah, I know. Maybe in Toy Story 7, we'll see Andy on his deathbed, and the
Yes, and by
toys
that
will be
time,
next to him, and right before he dies, Woody's gonna say, "Andy," and Andy's gonna turn around and be like, "We love you, partner." He's gonna be like, "You're alive!" And then he'll have a heart
yeah,
attack and die.
yes, he will go very peacefully and meaningfully.
Yeah.
Oh yes,
But
but otherwise, though, Inside Out, though, like if there is going to be an Inside Out 3, I'm sure they're going to go the route. Probably, I'm not even sure if they'll have Riley in. I'm not sure if they'll have her in college. Maybe still keep her at the young age, because there's so much more that they can do with this character and talk about the emotional regulations. I just wonder, like, will they have Riley have any other form of encounters of scenarios? I'm sure they're going to, because this whole thing is still in her mind. I just wonder how much more of the characters, I wonder what their next level of finding common ground is going to be. That's what it is, kind of
mm,
thing.
well,
You know?
I would just rather they don't make more, but it makes money, so they're
Oh,
going
of
to make
course.
it.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course. Of course.
Yeah, because I think it works beautifully as one story about how emotions cause us to act in life and
Hmm.
cause and how it helps form and shape our lives. You know, I I do wonder whatever happened to the subconsciouses, like within the subconsciouses. Like, does joy have a subconscious as well? That might be getting a little too deep into it. That's kind of like saying, how did the toys know to go still when Andy walks in the room? Oh,
I think it was like instinct, like instantly. It's almost like a power down for them, because I think they know, like, if Andy sees them, that can mean their life is altered forever. You know?
yeah, yeah.
It was,
I wonder though. Like, it would be interesting to see a movie about Riley as an adult. The only
I agree.
problem is that that's not really like kid friendly territory. Not that
It's
it's
not,
inappropriate, they wouldn't be like going into her sex life or anything, but it would be just a little too much to
and
be like, oh, here's a story about someone trying to find a job and having kids like that. That's like Pixar's about childhood.
And also,
And
if they attempted that, then they could end up all of a sudden with mixed conception of writing, and then reviews or something, or people could end up saying, "Oh, the humor was off color" or something. And then for something
yeah,
like Disney or Pixar, and that happens a lot for a lot of the DreamWorks films. Well, no offense, DreamWorks. Who cares if it happens for them a little more? I mean, look, they've made Shrek. Shrek had all kinds of comments and still is a success, kind of thing.
yeah,
But Disney is a different line. Yeah.
yeah, and Shrek was kinda like, because Shrek is like DreamWorks, where it's like, oh, we're DreamWorks. We don't make the super serious animated movies that are going to make you cry, where Pixar does that. Or they have for a while. But the thing is, with a movie like Inside Out and Toy Story and Wall-E and Monsters Inc.,
That's a
they make,
pattern they're never gonna break.
yeah, it's like, that's like the Chicago Bulls in the 90s. They're like a dynasty. And it makes for an impossible expectations when it comes to Pixar, because every Pixar movie I see, I go, yeah, it's good, but it's no Inside Out, and that's not a fair advantage. Like
And
Hoppers, I saw recently, I thought it was great, but I'm still going, yeah, but it's not Toy Story.
and I think, and then when we look at the two different studios, and I could tell, DreamWorks obviously does not want that type of response. DreamWorks wants it where they can get laughs, which is why they don't care if their
Yeah.
stuff falls off color a bit, because they know it works for them many
Well, that and
times.
like their whole IP with like Shrek was like, we're gonna make fun of all your childhood fairy tale stuff. So like their whole thing is roasting other properties.
And
So
now look,
it's a
another
little,
Shrek's in development now.
oh great. Yeah, I stopped seeing the Shrek movies after the second one.
I stopped
So
after the third because third was okay, but it was like, okay, gotta conclude. Then they decided to go Shrek Forever After. And
yeah.
that's when 3D was such a thing. And now look, they're gonna bring Shrek back, but I think it's just because that's just something to bring back, more of a thing like, hey guys, yeah, Shrek still wants to exist in this world somehow. That's kind of what it is.
Yeah.
But otherwise though, but in terms of Inside Out, though, not like Disney is so strict. Same with Pixar. Like Disney, even I kind of feel bad for Gen Z. I don't mean this offensively, but because there was a time in 2016 where cinema chains would re-release these Disney films. Inside Out was even included. Like they'd have a Disney series and everything. And that was like an opportunity, for people to see movies that have been out on the big screen. But then cinemas have stopped doing that. Like children could watch Pirates of the Caribbean, they could watch Monsters Inc., they could watch all that stuff. And then look, Disney Vault, all that stuff comes in. Nope. Now most theaters can't even access the classic stuff by Disney. Well, Gen Z is not going to get to see these Disney films in the format they were meant to be seen.
Yeah, they're all going to be streaming them on their 4K TVs, and they're going to think they're getting the real experience, but really they're being cheated by it. These movies are meant to be seen in theaters with other families. Like the parents are meant to cry together while the kids are meant to laugh together. And then the kids all together are supposed to be wondering what the fuck is wrong with their parents.
And even at CinemaCon, though, at least for our newer films, one thing I've learned in terms of like movie theaters and release dates and everything, movie theaters and studios have something in place that says, I think, I don't remember the days off the top of my head, but they want new releases to remain in theaters for at least 45 days or more, because they said the problem is the window is too short. And I think that's a step up, but it's also not guaranteed, kind of thing.
45 is still that's only a month and 2 weeks, I think.
Yes, and also by that time, sometimes certain rights or acquisitions will still end up on streaming very easily.
Now here is one emotion that was in the second movie, but was used more as a punchline than anything. That was nostalgia.
Oh
And
yes.
when you bring up well, movies were in theaters, that makes me nostalgic for when a movie would be in the theaters for months, and then
I
you would
remember
have
that.
to wait like what, 6 months for it to come on VHS or DVD, and we don't have that anymore.
Even people waiting outside the door just to buy tickets to a movie. I know people who did that. People have told me they did that for Lord of the Rings films. They did it for Titanic. They did it for Phantom Menace and films like that. I even remember, I think my mom at one point told me she remembers how hard it was to see Titanic back then, because Titanic would just always sell out, even if it was a weekday. You couldn't even go.
Yeah,
literally.
I went to Titanic during a sold out screening with my dad, and I remember he had to pee during the movie, and the whole film is just like water going everywhere. So he had to run out during that thing and take care of
Oh
his
yeah.
business.
And even then, like when it comes even, now talk about that, like emotional regulation, that kind of just makes me think, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
like even like an inside out, like moments where sometimes people just break. Like
Yeah.
Riley breaks. Riley, we see Riley break more in Inside Out too, because it's almost like,
Oh yeah.
like it's almost like, her mind is really is getting very angry by being on the ice because she's not able to fulfill what her dream is. But also at the same time, it's more of like that thing where it's like she just has to get up and try again. But at her mind, for her, like what makes me think is her mind, for how young she still is, it's really hard for her to think of being a winner like that right away. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
Especially when you're that age.
Well,
Yeah.
what I really like that they do with this movies is that they don't just like take the emotions and make characters out of them, but they like create worlds out of them.
Yeah.
There's the world of imagination, and then there's like the thought train that's going to take them exactly where they need to go to get Riley back into place. This movie just has this vivid originality to it and an empathy to it that's so sweet.
Oh, yeah.
The director of this movie, I think, let me pull up his name here. Oh, they had two of them. Well, it's Ronnie Del Carmen and Pete Doctor.
Oh, yes.
And Pete Doctor, the way he came up with the concept was that his kid was, I think he was growing up, he was just learning and going through all of his emotional development. And he was like, well, I wonder what is going on in my kid's head. Like, what emotions are shaping his behavior, because that's kind of an interesting idea. And you have these ideas of what he ended up doing was creating the film that you saw, but of course it went through probably various revisions and all that. But the magic of Pixar is that they tap right into kids' imaginations, right into their minds, without having to resort to talking animals and all this stuff. Like, because if you think about Toy Story, it was groundbreaking because that was like the first contemporary animated film that Disney released. Everything before that were like fairy tales and things that like took place in medieval times and stuff like that.
And even
Uh,
then, a lot of animation films now, I think going forward, are going to require more than one director at this point. I feel many of
well,
them.
yeah, if you're making those Spider Verse movies,
Oh,
certainly, like,
yes. And one thing, even now, talk about nostalgia. Now, this is kind of bad nostalgia, but I feel Disney always brings nostalgia to me. I do remember when Disney would re-release these films in 3D that were already out, and they did make money, but then people just come out and complain because they would be like, "We
hmm,
didn't see anything different. We didn't see
huh,
anything different." You
like the
know?
3D just didn't look like 3D.
Yeah, so Lion King received the most garbage for that at the time. Well, it's like, think about it. The animation with the original Lion King, it does not work like that,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
that makes you angry, right? Makes
Yes.
you.
And I'm thinking, and I'm just thinking, now there a lot of those audiences probably had a whole lot of Lewis Black swimming in their heads once that movie hit their conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I felt a lot of Lewis Blacks in my head when I was watching the Lion King live action remake,
Oh God.
or the photorealistic remake. Oh my god! And then Mufasa, I had to see
Mufa-
that.
I
Yeah,
saw Mufasa. Literally, I remember that screening. I had just returned, I think, from London, and I didn't make it to that screen, but I watched it after, like when it opened Thursday. But then I was still kind of brain dead. While I watched it, I sat through, but I'm like, do I want to review this? I'm like, yeah, no, kind of thing, just because
mhm.
my head was not into it very much, like I was anticipating. But London over advertised it at that BFI IMAX at the time, kind of
Huh.
thing. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, though, I feel like Lion King now, and many forms of Disney, maybe we're going to keep seeing this. They're going to keep picking the individual characters to have their own story in a
Oh
way.
yeah.
They're already doing that at
Yeah.
this point. It makes
Yeah,
money, yes.
yeah, they could just kind of do what they did with the direct-to-video sequels and just make those direct to
Oh, I
theaters.
remember those. Lion King 1.5. Lion King
Yeah.
2. Lion King 2 never got a theatrical release because I don't think Disney believed in that back then.
No, that they I don't know if it was originally slated for theatrical and it was so bad they put it on VHS,
And,
or if it was just always slated for VHS.
and
Um,
I do kind of remember briefly in that time frame, and I was like very young. I was, I think, age 6. I remember at the time the show Hey Doug got dropped by Nickelodeon. So here's what I think ended up
mm,
happening. I think what could have interfered with Lion King 2 to get anything theatrical is the fact that almost they bought the rights. Disney bought the rights to Hey Doug just to get Doug's first movie. And Doug's first movie was supposed to be a VHS release. But then Disney's like, no, no, we're going to revamp this. We're going to make this look like something special. And it was always under Nickelodeon. Then Disney bought it. So they made Doug's first movie have a theatrical release. And that did so badly,
mm.
unfortunately, which I think Disney would have been better off putting Lion King 2 in a cinema over Doug's first movie, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why you have Pixar, who are the big hitters and give you these movies that go to theaters because, kids, they can watch Cars, they can watch Minions, but Inside Out, just like Toy Story, is something they remember. And
Yes.
it's not because of the merchandising, it's not because of the flashy colors, it's because of the story
The
and of what make
story, people are going to remember it. People are going to want to keep following it. There's like a pattern. Everyone has a distinct characterization about themselves. You see it in every character in Toy Story, especially with the different toys. You even see that with the different forms of emotions in
Mhm.
Inside Out. And they all have a story that are going to continue. Each individual in those franchises are gonna have a different story as they continue, and they're all gonna correlate. That's how
Well,
they do it right.
for this one, I hope that they just stop it Inside Out 3 because it'll be inevitable. It'll come. Um,
Oh
but
yeah.
Inside Out, this movie is special because not only because it plays with our emotions, um,
Hmm.
but because it's written through such a kind-hearted perspective. And yeah, you could say that about a lot of movies, but like this movie's like written about a guy who really wants to know what goes on in kids' heads. And that's why he reached out to a lot of different neurological groups, sort of like the one you sent me the information on. And they basically said, like, well, this is how people handle emotions, this is how they get out of whack, and by seeing all these doctors, he was able to kind of make a screenplay off of that. Most people wouldn't make a movie that's based on trauma and try to market it towards kids.
Oh
But
yeah.
Inside Out does that, and it does so beautifully, because I you don't have to tell me your traumatic events, but yeah, for
I
yeah,
trust you, my friend. Talk about traumatic events. Like I will
yeah.
say, one thing that spoke to me even a bit when I was in Vegas, how we talked about how we did a segment on Rain Man that time. I remember during one of the appreciation moments, they played a skit from Rain Man, like very, very briefly. I think it was
Mm.
the moment where he realized, like, where it was the moment where Dustin Hoffman is like talking about the syrup kind of thing, and how he
Uh-huh.
wants it to show up kind of
Yeah,
thing. Yes. And
yeah.
I'm just thinking, yep, that looks about right. That looks like a pattern that never wants to be broken, kind of thing. You
Yeah.
know?
Well, yeah, this movie was sort of like, I guess if you were to think about autism or even not autism, but like this movie is about breaking patterns and how difficult that is. Because, Riley's breaking her pattern by moving to San Francisco to this new home and everything. And when you do that and you have to like leave everything, that's so hard. But yet this movie really like it makes you think about those sad moments in your life, but it
Mhm.
makes you realize why you're happy for them because you learn about how special things are.
And
And that's
that's
why
all. That's almost like the ending of Rain Man, where in the end, they decide to let Raymond go back to live where he was living. But I think in the end they realize, they'll still get to be close, but that in the end it's better for his development kind of
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and that the form of acceptance of that movie, even though it's sad, there's something that's touching about it,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
definitely
Inside Out is kind of sad, but it's also very happy because
it. It
it's
is.
like Riley realizes I still have my family and I have this home and everything's going to be okay. And I
Oh yeah.
think that's the theme of the movie. The theme of the movie is everything's going to be okay. Your emotions, they're going to have you're going to have trouble keeping your marbles together. But if you
Mhm.
do, things will work out and you'll be all right. But
I even see that in so many Disney characters, even both in live action or live actual people and animation. And an example of that kind of comes to my mind now is little resorting back to CinemaCon. Like when I will tell you, Rick Moranis showed up, and what came to my mind was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, literally.
yeah,
Thinking, yep, this is the good dad who made an accidental invention, but he's gonna make it right, kind of thing. And
right.
even those kid characters have their own issues of feeling connected too. Disney
Yeah.
always has a form of finding to disconnect and making it right somehow, even if it's not the best way of writing sometimes.
Yeah. Well, Inside Out was brilliant writing, luckily, and that's when
Oh,
they bring out their big hitters is with Pixar. And
oh,
who can go wrong with Michael Giacchino's score? The
oh,
da da ba da ba da ba ba da
of
ba
course.
da bum. Oh my God! Immediately when that piano comes in, it's very gentle, it's very soft, and it feels like little teardrops coming into your heart.
I,
That's how I feel with it. And Giacchino's brilliant because all of his scores are very simple. They're very like 1, 2, 3, 4 notes. Like Medal of Honor, bum 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 bum. That's like 5 notes right there.
oh yeah.
Even Inside Out, that's a few more notes. It's dun 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 7 notes, but it's so like you can just hear the first few and go, you immediately know what that is. You're like, oh, that's Inside
And
Out. Even his Batman theme is
and
pretty
the
memorable.
only and even then, now that you mention that, the other reason why this copyright thing is so sad is because what experiences that are fun are those orchestrated movie experiences. Now some
Mm,
Disney films will get them, but thanks to copyright issues, many of them will not get them.
yeah,
And with the music component like that orchestrated would just look so phenomenal, literally. you
yeah.
know
Well, I remember seeing Return of the King with a live orchestra, with also the choral segments as well,
they're
and it
doing
was
it for fellowship.
spectacular,
They're
spectacular.
doing it for fellowship this year,
Yeah.
and then they're also doing it. Then they're also doing it for Rocky. I know they do this
Oh,
at the
okay.
auditorium theater. The last time I did it was for Whiplash, but of course that's because I love Whiplash. But
Yeah,
honestly, though, those experiences they're fun and all, but it's an arm and a leg because of how they have all the orchestra to pay and all that stuff, kind of
yeah.
thing. But yeah, but otherwise, Inside Out though I do feel that, like if kids are going to watch this for the first time, like, or if parents know their kids are going to watch it and they know their kid, or if they're having their kids looked at or helping them try to understand the world that they're struggling
Mhm.
with alone, I do think parents can benefit when they try to explain to their children why the emotions are there in her head. Like, why are the characters placed there?
Yeah.
Why does Riley have these emotions? That's the main reason why I see it to speak on the spectrum, even though it's animated, though.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So out of 4 Guinnesses, what would you give Inside Out?
I would say Inside Out is going to fall for me right at 3.
Okay,
So,
wow, 3 out of 4.
yeah,
Bold, bold. I
yeah.
I saw this movie again, and I gotta say, I'm like, damn, this is why Pixar does what it does. It is a perfect 4 out of 4 for me.
Oh, yes.
I think it's a movie that elicits tears, but doesn't do so manipulatively. They're
Mhm.
not deceiving audience. They're genuinely reaching out to them. And yeah, I think if you're going through depression, if you have a kid, like you were saying, who you feel like needs something to maybe help them see how someone is understanding what's going on in here and in
Mhm.
here, then Inside Out is the movie to check out.
Yeah.
So that's it for me. Tarek Fayoumi, you can check out his stuff at movieswithtarek.com. And if I got that wrong, don't worry. There's a little thing on the video. It says see more. Click on that thing that says see more. It'll give you the link right to his website. You know how technology works, kids? Anyways, if you liked what you saw, please like, subscribe, comment. We'll let you know when the next episode is. And until then, please take care of your emotions. Don't be like some people in the world who only operate out of anger, operate out of joy.
And
Uh,
also another message I try to tell people as well is like honestly, if you ever feel you're in need, like if you ever feel you're in need, reach out to someone, a friend, a counselor, a parent, someone in your family, or even if worse comes to worse, call local health line and talk to someone, because sometimes, and I've learned this from the show 13 Reasons Why, I watched that show at such a hard point in my life. The one thing I've learned, and they say this many times, is once you do start talking about it, it does get easier, kind
yeah,
of thing, in many
it
senses.
does.
It does.
Find someone you can talk to who actually understands where you're coming from and listen. Because you can have people who can go, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry," but find someone who's been in your shoes, and it'll make a world of difference. Anyways, folks, I hope we got you in the feels. I hope I make you cry like Pixar does, but only tears of joy. Thank
Oh
you,
yeah,
Tarek. Thank you, world. Okay, let's find some joy out there during these joyless times.
let's do it.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Play outro. Oh, wait, what is this? I don't care. Goodbye.